You are listening to Season 2 of The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, the short and often daily podcast in which I chronicle my life and attempt to be a writer by writing daily. Sometimes. Hello, today is Wednesday the 16th of July 2025 and you are listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer. Now I need to keep on point today because I've got quite a reasonable amount to say. So the first thing is I finally got around to updating my website. I last put an article about my writing on my website in February. I mean, that's absolutely disgusting. And I think probably the reason I didn't is because I feel I keep people up to date with this. But the reality is there's only a handful of listeners and I think more people do read the blog when I bother to update it. So I finally updated the blog and I'm going to read you a little bit of what I put in there because I am really pleased with what I have achieved since February. Basically. So I had, in that time, since February, I'd finished writing the first draft of Empress of the Trees, and then I've written the second draft of Empress of the Trees since February. Now, admittedly, that isn't signed off yet, as I've explained before. I've got a physical copy coming. I had an email to say that it's been dispatched, which means I should get it tomorrow or the day after, which is about 5 or 6 days ahead of when Lulu told me I would get it, which is brilliant because it means I can start the sign-off. So yeah, I will sign it off and then that will be finished. So basically I'm going to read it as a book and just make any changes. Anything I see on the page that I feel I need to change, I will change in the version on my laptop. So there's that. I wrote that article. So as well as having done that this month, I have also done the fifth and final draft of Still Life. That is signed off. So that's pretty good. And I kind of feel like I'm in a sort of little bit of limbo now because I don't feel I can start something new until I've got the hard copy of Empress of the Trees for me to sign off, because I don't want to start something, get into that, because it's quite a mental stretch to then rip myself away from it to come back to Empress, which is why I'm kind of keeping my brain on Empress. As I say, hopefully the book will arrive tomorrow or Friday, which means I can do that final read off. It's going to take a while, 271,000 words, about 650 printed pages, but I can do that. Anyway, so I did that. I wrote that in my blog. And the other thing I've also done relatively recently, which you'll know if you've been listening to the podcast, is I have started preparing my submissions package for for Still Life, and I've started submitting the English Hikikomori. So that was all today. As I say, the fact that I'm hopefully going to get my copy of Empress tomorrow or the day after is just fantastic, because I will then spend quite a lot of the remaining 2 weeks that I'm not working getting that signed off fully. And once it's signed off fully, I can get some physical copies and electronic copies sent out to the people who would like to read them, which is going to be fantastic. I'm going to give them 3 months to do that. And then once I get back the feedback from that, I will use that to shape any revisions I make in what will hopefully be the final draft, the third draft. As I say, because I've moved to a write-edit model, what I used to do before was write the whole first draft, and then the second draft would be me editing that first draft. And that second draft was always a nightmare. Because I've now built the editing process into my first draft process, hopefully it will knock a draft out. So normally, if I'd written it the normal way, what I'm now calling the third draft, which will hopefully be the last one, which is going to be based on the feedback I get from beta readers, that would be the fourth draft. But because I've done what I've done with the editing as I go, hopefully that's cut out one draft out of the process. We shall see. So there was that. The other thing I did today was I attended my wonderful bookshop's book club. Really enjoyed it. Normally the room is packed, and I don't know, we're not quite sure why, but there was 3 shop staff and 2 punters, is that the right word? Two of us, which is really unusual. Normally the room is packed out, and often they have to run a second session for people that can't get onto the first one. There's a theory that everybody thinks it's tomorrow. We shall find out. Well, we won't find out because there won't be anybody there. But the book we were reading, as I've mentioned a couple of times before, is The Betrayal of Thomas True by A.J. West. And it was even though there was only 5 of us, it was a really lively and interesting discussion. Now, what's really, and because it's a book it's got some flaws in it. There are some good bits, there are some bad bits. Only 2 out of the 5 of us discussing it today, this is a spoiler, so if you intend to read it, don't listen to this. But there's basically a bit where it's established that Thomas dies at the pillory. And then suddenly on the next page, he's alive again. And only 2 out of the 5 of us picked up on the fact that he had died at the pillory, and that everything that he did after that was a character that was close to him pretending he was there as a kind of way of softening the blow of his death. This same character, a guy called Gabriel, did exactly the same when his wife and kid died, so he pretended they existed even when they didn't. So the character has a history of it, but genuinely only 2 out of the 5 of us realised that's what was going on, and they all assumed that Thomas lived until virtually the last page. So that was interesting. As I say, the author is actually going to be at Suddenly Books in Daventry on Saturday, and it's a real shame because I enjoyed it enough. There were some weird bits. So there's a bit where most of it kind of feels like the real world, but there's one little weird bit where you've got these kind of impish children who live in an underground society. It felt a bit Ben Aronovich. It felt a bit Rivers of London. It was the one bit in the book that kind of took me out of the genre that I thought the book was meant to be in, which was historical fiction. It kind of shifted slightly on its axis and made it, I don't know if you'd call it fantasy, but certainly urban fantasy or magical, well, something weird like that. Anyway, so that's me for today. I'm actively going to try and update my blog more regularly. So I'm writing an article on English Heritage and National Trust as we speak. That's me done for today. Tomorrow I'll be absolutely thrilled if I can report to you that my copy of Empress of the Trees has arrived, but in reality I suspect it'll be on Friday. Anyway, notwithstanding that, I will talk to you again at roughly the same time tomorrow. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye. You have been listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer. For more information about what I'm writing, go to linktr.ee/Richard Writes, capital R, capital W, where you can find details of my website and social media. I may see you there.